Okay, Mark meets Stephen Maher, the CEO of MBA, aka Maher Bird Associates. Hi, Stephen.
Hello. How are you?
I'm very good. You okay?
Yeah, very good.
Can you give us a very quick summary of your career to date?
Yes, sure. I went to university, studied modern history. Obviously, nothing to do whatsoever with what I'm doing now. But
which university?
Yeah, I went to Oxford, and it's something. History was something I was very interested in, and you know, I did that classic thing. I was in my last year. Didn't really know what I was going to do. Applied to the BBC, applied to Reuters, applied to Maher, applied for marketing. I thought I like the whole idea of media-related journalism, advertising sort of thing. So I applied to various places, and I ended up, luckily getting a few jobs. And there's one agency that doesn't exist anymore called Allen Brady and Marsh that I got recruited by, and it was run by this guy who was an ex-actor, and he was a sort of a showman. And he was absolutely brilliant, and so I got excited by that agency, and then
so you started at what?
I started there as an account manager, and then I basically.
Did you even know what an account manager was then?
Well, what they did is they ran a sort of graduate recruitment scheme where they actually it's quite clever really, and in many ways some agencies do it more. Where they took people in lots of different departments. So I joined with 7 other people. They had creatives, they had planners, they had account men, and they had media people. We all went in at the same time. And then you got the opportunity in the first 2 or 3 months to kind of decide almost where you were going to go. And account management just seemed like the right thing for me because, it probably helped maybe because I'm slightly more analytical, and also because I like the idea of managing things and leading things. It seemed to work for me. So that's where I worked out. Then I spent 3 years there. Then I went to an agency called AMV BBDO, which was called AMV at the time, Abermead Vickers. Of course, it's now AMV BBDO, now one of the biggest agencies around. And because ABM, the agency I was at, was great because it was really good for account management, but it wasn't very creative. AMV, is like it is today, is a really creative agency, so I wanted to go somewhere very creative, and I was lucky to get involved with that. Launched IKEA in the UK, which is quite cool. So I went there, became account director there, and then I came across this agency which had just started up called Simons Palmer, which doesn't exist anymore either. And it was like a kind of real creative hotshot started by these guys. And I went in as the 12th person there, so I joined that agency and kept going there. And then a few years later, I decided I want to set up my own agency, so I created a joint venture between Simons Palmer and myself and a couple of other people, so we were jointly owned. Then what happened is quite a long story, but then what happened is Simons Palmer got bought by TWA, so we were partly owned by Omnicom. We were involved with Omnicom and TWA for a few years as MBA, but then about 6 years ago we did a management buyout and became totally independent. So MBA's kind of had like 3 periods of its life. It's had the kind of Simons Palmer period where it was joint venture, part of Omnicom, and then the recent stage, which I have to say I'm particularly excited about because we're now, totally independent, and it's kind of works for us really, and that's what we've been like for the last few years.
What's the most embarrassing thing that's happened to you so far?
Most embarrassing thing that's probably happened is, let me think. I think nothing necessarily massively, embarrassing. But I have been in situations before where I've been absolutely convinced. I've told people we've won a pitch, or we've absolutely, I've virtually gone on record and told people in the agency we're definitely going to get that one.
Yeah. And
of course, you get the call and you haven't got it. And then the opposite. I've just done this recently. I told everyone we would definitely not win this piece of business, and of course, we get a call and we get it. So, I don't know how embarrassing it is, but sometimes when you stand up in these situations and you do these things, and you make a declaration, and you have a view, but I always find things like that, particularly pitches, incredibly difficult to call. It's very difficult because it's always, these days it's so competitive, it's so finely balanced, and I now have almost given up deciding whether I've won it or not.
Even with the experience that you've got being client-facing and pitching,
yeah,
it's amazing that you still really just can't tell.
I think it's really hard. It's really hard because you don't know, because even though you perform one on the day, the good news is about, if you're playing a football match, obviously, you've got the goals, you've won on the day, you've done a good performance, and you know the result.
Yeah.
The trouble about pitches, you don't know what other factors are out there, so you don't know what, there might be some I don't know, some politics, there might be just some other people you don't know, or there might be some other factors. So you just don't know, and even though when you think you've done a great performance doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to win. So yeah, there are probably a few times when I've called it wrong.
What's the best bit of career advice you would give to people?
I think stamina. I think you need a lot of stamina in this business. I think you need to be very driven, and you need to be able to take the knocks, and you've got to be the kind of person that can keep going and going even when you don't win a piece of business, or you get knocked back, or a piece of work doesn't get sold, or there's a lack of success with a particular client around something like that. Whatever it might be, you've got to be quite tough in that sense, and you just got to keep going, and you've got to it's never going to be straightforward. It's going to always be quite fluid. It's always going to be, every day in a good way is going to be different. So you're never going to quite know what it's going to bring. But I think you just need that. You need that enthusiasm, that ability. I mean, we have 4 values that we kind of hold dear in this place, and they partly come out of that. And one of them's about people who are exacting, and basically you've got a good attention to detail. It's quite important. The other thing is, one of the key ones is spark. And when we recruit people, we always think, have you got the spark? And I think a lot of that's about someone who's just enthusiastic, proactive, determined, driven. Someone's got stamina. It's that kind of thing. So I would say, be passionate about it, really care about it, really want to do it, and be prepared to keep going even when it's tough.
Good answer. I think you kind of answered a few different questions in there as well. You kind of answered what it takes to work here, and also what you like about agency life, all in one answer, which is great. Saves me asking you another few questions.
Keep asking me anyway. Yeah.
If you could turn back time on your career and agency life, what would you have done differently, if anything?
I think I probably would have. Maybe we would have done our management buyout of Omnicom earlier. I think we went for a few years where we were part owned, and very good relationship, very happy and everything. But I think that we're quite happy as an independent agency. I think it enabled us to be a bit more focused, enabled us to share, if you like, the responsibility and the ownership across a wider group of people. It was maybe slightly daunting doing that management buyout a few years ago, but on reflection, maybe we should have done it earlier. Really, it hasn't in a sense caused any problems, but maybe I would have done it earlier.
What does being an independent agency mean to you? Because obviously there are fewer and fewer independents around today, and obviously there are loads of new startups happening all the time. But the bigger groups are swallowing up independence. So what does it mean for you today to be independent?
Well, I think it means is that clearly there are all sorts of different ways of cutting it, and and clients want different things, and there's always going to be different agencies for different types of clients, and which is fine. But I think that the advantage is that there is this personal dedication, this ownership, and this commitment that you get out of it, and it just becomes very personal. I'm not suggesting that someone who runs a large operation for a multinational is not taking it personally, but for us it obviously is ours, and it just makes you maybe even more passionate or even more driven to succeed, really. And it means that the commitment you give to clients is complete, because you know that if you don't succeed, it's your business that's not going to succeed, if you see what I mean. And maybe sometimes we can take decisions, financial decisions, which are right for the long term and right for the client, as opposed to necessarily thinking short term in hitting, say, a profit target. There's an advantage there. I think it just makes everyone very, very focused on, in terms of the management here. It makes people very motivated, very incentivised, because it's about ownership. It's that this industry is full, as you say, of people going out there all the time and starting up businesses. And the reason it is because I think that ownership is quite a key component for a lot of people in our business. They like to have a piece of something. They like to be part of something, which is why there'll always be startups. It'll always happen.
And I guess your name is above the door as well, so It's quite important from a personal reputation point of view.
Yeah, I mean it is. I mean, you know, we've quite deliberately, in a sense, morphed the brand from Maher Associates to MBA over the last few years. Partly because, you know, it's because obviously it's many other people other than me really, and also Bird was a guy who started the business many years ago. He left very early on, so you know. But it's more about the brand really, you know, and it is. See having name above the door, but it's not just about me.
What's the best brand that you've worked on to date?
Let me think. Many brands. I think that you know, currently, you know, working with all sorts of great brands. You know, I'm extremely excited about, you know, Love Film at the moment, which is one of our clients. You know, it's now owned by Amazon. It's an amazing business. You know, we very much transitioned that business from a DVD business into an instant streaming business. You know, being owned by Amazon is amazing. There's so much opportunity there. It's a very vibrant brand. It's a sexy brand, you know, and we're doing great work for them. And it's a fantastic client. And you know, I think it changes all the time. I mean, but at the moment, it's very exciting.
Do you have a Love Film subscription?
Of course, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yeah, and my kids use it quite a lot.
Good. What's your favourite ad campaign of all time?
Very difficult question. Obviously excluding ours, which of course is reasonable to exclude ours. I think that I've always been a great fan of some of the, you know, very early sort of Benson and Hedges work that happened in the sort of 70s and 80s, and although it's politically incorrect to like cigarette advertising, and of course I would never touch that, and genuinely we don't do that, it's some of the most iconic kind of campaigns, and it were done at the time, you know, by CDP, which was great at the time. I think it was always on CDP. And you know, I mean, they were classic. They were in the cinema. I remember as a child going to see them. I remember the, you know, the chameleon, and I remember the, you know, the pyramids and all that kind of stuff. And I think actually it probably influenced me to get into the business because it was so exciting and iconic that, you know, and it's amazing. It still resonates now with me, even though, you know, we've moved on. So it's certainly one of my favourites.
You come from obviously a very client service heavy background.
Yes.
And I guess most of your agency experience before this was quite above the line, quite advertising focused.
Yes.
Obviously Maher Bird, the perception of Maher Bird or MBA in the industry is that it's a kind of through the line,
correct,
it's an integrated agency.
Yes.
What's next for MBA?
I think more of that. I mean, I think that what we say is, you know, we're a creative agency for the digitally integrated world, because I think that integration has always been, as you say, at the heart of this business. You know, when we set up this business, you know, even though my background and Graham Kerr, my creative partner's background, was much more in advertising, you know, we very much wanted a business that was as much about below the line as it was above the line. There was no line, all that kind of stuff. So it's always been about integration. Obviously, digital, as we know, has changed everything, and now, you know, as we describe it, you know, it's about digital integration. So there is, in a sense, even less of a need for a line now than there ever was in the past. And you know, if an agency is, in a sense, not digitally integrated or not had digital at the heart of them, then they don't succeed as an agency these days. So I expect we're just seeing more and more of that. As you can imagine, the output of this agency is, you know, it's certainly over 50% is digital now, and of course it will just keep going up and up and up, as you'd expect. So for us, it's, you know, we call it brand action. It's all about basically delivering the right response for a client, getting the right brand insight into something, and if that's through digital means, it's through whatever the means are required. But it's going to be more of that. What
are your interests outside of work when you're not working? What do you get up to?
I still play football, which is a bit embarrassing, actually. I mean, that's, when you asked the embarrassing question before, that was my personal example of that. And I play with a lot of old blokes on Saturday morning, and everyone lets their aggression out a bit.
Yeah.
But I like doing that.
What's the football team called?
Well, basically we're Reds versus Whites. It's really, really uncreative, actually, and there's quite a lot of lawyers play, so let's always have a few good arguments.
So what is it, a friendly kick?
Yeah, it's basically just 11-a-side. You know, we play every week. It's good. It's good. And, you know, it's Saturday morning. By 10:30, I'm sort of done, and we've had a great time and run about.
Are you red or white normally?
I'm red. I'm red. so I get to wear the England shirt, which is quite nice. But I'm not very good, and a lot of very, very good people, but it's just a laugh, you know. And it keeps you, you know, fairly fit.
What position do you play in?
I play as centre forward actually,
Okay.
And don't ask me how many goals I scored because sadly not many at the moment. There was a day I scored a few, but not anymore. But it's a good laugh anyway. I'm a failed rock guitarist, obviously, like most people in our industry are. I basically still play, but on my own pretty much now. And when I was at university, I spent most of my time playing the band. Really, that was kind of what I was most interested in.
What was the band called?
And we have various bands actually. Some really, I mean, these are terrible names. Okay, so one was Monolith, which is pretty terrible. One was Bass Desire, spelled B-A-S-S, obviously. And then I gave my parents a bit of a shock when I was 18 because I got a place at university and I was in this band and I said I'm not going to go to university, I'm going to play in this band, and I almost did. But I suddenly realised I wasn't good enough. So luckily, I went into university and got into this business. But I still like playing the guitar. You know.
Especially when we've got the option of Oxford or starting.
Yeah, I know. There was actually. Yeah, my parents, to be fair, they were a bit concerned, but I mean, but they were quite relaxed about it. And then luckily, I made the right decision. And I think I realised that I just wasn't really that good, you know. But I like it. So.
Do you have children?
I do. Yeah.
So if your children turn around to you and
exactly,
say, "I've got the option of going to Oxford
exactly.
or starting a band," what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably say, go with your soul, go with what you want to do,
Okay.
and hope to go to university. But yeah, I think you've got to go with what you want to do.
Let's move on to a quick fire round. Can line or D&AD pencil?
Can line.
Olympic gold medal or an Oscar?
Olympic gold medal.
The brightest person that you've worked with?
Let me think. Some pretty bright people. Simon Clemmo, who has managed to sell 2 businesses now very successfully and done very well in his career. Absolute razor thinking. Brilliant. Able to crystallise everything down into the essence of something. Very smart guy.
The most creative person you've worked with?
Apart from Graham Kerr, obviously my creative partner. Other creative, David Abbott, who I worked with many years ago, because he seemed to be able to come at things from lots of different angles. You know, he wasn't a one trick kind of guy. He was able to look at all sorts of different brands, different tones of voice, different styles, and very clever.
The best looking person you've worked with?
Best looking person I've worked with, let me think. In terms of my wife is watching this video now, but I can't think actually. Best looking person, probably. Let me think. David Abbott was quite good looking.
Fine, I'll let you have that one.
Yeah.
Creatives or suits?
Always creatives, even though I'm a suit.
Money or happiness?
I mean, always happiness, and money might help.
Apple or Android?
Apple.
Degree or no degree?
Don't care.
Art directors or copywriters?
Both.
Retained work or pitch work?
Retained.
Web or mobile?
Mobile.
Independent agencies or networked agencies?
Independent.
Outsourced production or on-site production?
On-site.
Don Draper or Roger Sterling?
Don Draper.
Interesting. And lastly, twist or stick?
Stick.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.